Hello and welcome to Vintage Movie Nights. I am Joe. With me is Ryan. This is where we usually watch vintage movies that are 30 plus years old. But today we're going to be doing something a little different. We are a little behind on our movie editing. So what we're going to be doing now every once in a while is we're going to be watching trailers or having conversations about movies. And today we're going to be watching the trailer for Happy Gilmore 2. And then having a general discussion about comedy. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ryan because this was Ryan's idea for an idea of something we could do that was a little bit different.
Joe was a big fan of watching the new Superman trailer, and I said, well, why don't we do this one too? Because I felt it could be a good discussion piece.
I think so.
About the state of the old school, stupid, raunchy comedy.
Yeah, the slapstick comedy, man.
I think the original Happy Gilmore falls into. It's not
absolutely.
quite 30 years old. I think it's 29 years.
Yeah.
We're coming up on it.
It sits in that Tommy Boy era, even I would say Step Brothers and Talladega Nights and Anchorman.
Well, I want to talk about those as well, which came a little bit later. But why don't we watch this?
So how familiar are you with Happy Gilmore? We'll go through some of that first. Tell me a little bit. Are you're a Happy Gilmore fan?
I'm a fan of Happy Gilmore.
Who isn't, right?
It's a funny sports comedy, which we've watched a few of on this channel. And if it were only a few years older, I think it would fit right in there with Slapshot we watched, Major League. It's a funny, stupid movie.
It's one of my favorites, honestly. I'm super excited. And when I heard Happy Gilmore 2 was coming, I was excited knowing all the cast. It sounds like all the cast is returning, so I'm excited. Have you seen this trailer?
It's been a minute, but yes.
Yeah. It's been out for like a month or something like that.
About a month, yeah. When it first came out, I watched it, and I haven't watched it since.
I think I watched it briefly once, so we'll dive into it right now. So
yeah.
With that, let's share my screen, and I always hear the sound of like when he's when he hits it. It's like that sound as he's about to hit the ball. I don't know. Anyway, that's my odd take on something random.
Arnold.
Yeah.
Jacko. Tiger.
Happy.
SpongeBob? What is that? What's with the beaver teeth? I haven't swung a club in years. I'm a little intimidated. All these guys hit it big now. I don't know where to start.
Bryson DeChambeau.
Rip it and rip it.
Sean Daly.
To update my happy place to something a little more age appropriate.
Mr. Gilmore? Holy shit.
We're not done with golf. Let me see the happy I fell in love with.
Yeah. Let's go.
Happy Gilmore 2.
We'll put a little extra into this one.
I am so sorry.
Hey, that's coming out soon too. July's going to be a good month for film. That is the trailer to Happy Gilmore 2. It's actually just a teaser trailer, so I would anticipate, in fact, it should be soon, I would imagine we'll get a deeper dive or that 1 or 2 minute full trailer. But I don't know, man, what's your initial take on it?
Well, it's exciting that they're going back to this. My take on it, I hope it's going to be a fun movie. I recently on Netflix watched, I would say a couple months ago, was watching the new Beverly Hills Cop, the Axel Foley.
How dare
movie.
You? Just kidding. We should have waited to watch it together.
Maybe something we were going to do. But I watched it, and I found it pretty entertaining. Not as good as the first, but better than the sequels. It was a good follow-up. What I really want to get into is can they do the things nowadays that they did in the first Happy Gilmore? You knew this conversation was coming because the state of this kind of comedy is in interesting place right now.
So the challenge, I think, and I'll say this, I don't think the trailer looks that good. I think there's some funny moments. It's a cute little teaser trailer. It feels like it's going to be very family oriented, very like he's now grown and an adult, and the same Adam Sandler trope. I hope there's a good story with Shooter McGavin coming back, and I hope there's something fun there. What made Happy Gilmore the first one is it was so unique, something you just didn't, a hockey player turned to golf with a crazy slap shot, so he hits the ball 400 yards. Well, Bryson DeChambeau hits it 385 now, like regularly. Like he's a golfer today, right? Like, and not even they show it. Like these guys are hitting the ball long now, so I just don't know how you do that same kind of funny skit comedy.
Yeah.
They're going to rely on nostalgia. That's going to be a part of it. They're going to rely on the jokes from the first one. They're going to try to carry over. It'll be interesting to see like how much hockey he tries to put in there. Like, is he still trying to be a hockey guy? Like, are they just going to abandon that? I mean, there was no hockey in this, so
no. I think they will rely on nostalgia. They'd almost have to. Comedies in the 90s when we were growing up, and then we'll get to the 2000s because I think that's a different style of comedy. But comedies in the 90s, they were very frivolous and stupid, and just you didn't have to think.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler was one of the big stars. Pie in the face. You're 100% right.
Saturday Night Live was in its heyday in the 90s. It was significantly better than it is today.
A good era, yeah. You had Adam Sandler, who with this and Billy Madison and The Wedding Singer and The Water Boy and Big Daddy, just all these silly, just stupid dick and fart jokes.
I'm just glad you didn't say Little Nicky. Just kidding.
I think that came later. That one wasn't as good. You had him, and I would think Jim Carrey would be the other.
Yeah, Jim Carrey was
his movie. Yeah. With the Ace Venturas and The Mask and Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, The Mask was a great one.
And just, but all these just, you would just sit, you didn't have to think about nothing.
Yeah.
And it would just be this stupid but funny comedy.
Yeah.
That would just, I don't even know how to describe, like it was just funny.
I mean, you look at the progression from 80s to 90s to 2000 to today, right? You go from... And you look at movies like we've already watched The Burbs and Spies Like Us and Three Amigos and Spaceballs, like the parodies, which really brought 90s was a parody era where there was a lot more parodies. They were making fun of movies. And then there was just the dumb comedies. And then you kind of switched into the 2000s where you started getting things like American Pie.
Well, and let's talk about that because I think when we got into the 2000s,
early 2000s,
but even through the late 2000s and maybe even to the 2010s, it was a different style of comedy. I will say the stupid comedy kind of ended.
Yeah.
And we got more of these comedies that, in my opinions, were better written.
I would agree with that. Like movies like Step Brothers is a better written movie than
it's a little bit of a better written movie.
Happy Gilmore or Tommy.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of that real world esque.
Yeah.
Step Brothers is an okay example. I would say the pinnacle of the 2000s comedy is when we ended the 2000s in 2009 with The Hangover. The first one.
Hangover is a good. That's it. Yep.
Smartly written.
Yep. Very
that
real.
I think honestly should have gotten an Oscar nomination for its screenplay. It did not. But that is just a smartly written comedy.
Right.
That could very well happen. It's a little over the top.
Yeah, but it's
with the Mike Tyson and the Tiger. But like it's so believable, and the characters are so well written.
Yes.
And I think the Judd Apatow films, like the 40-year-old
Great
version,
movie.
and Knocked Up, and even the movies that he produced, like Forgetting Sarah Marshall, a
That
movie
was
that
a phenomenal movie.
I saw
One of my
years later.
favorites.
I
Yeah.
didn't even see that in its initial release. I saw that only like a few years ago. That was one I missed. Um, that they're just so raunchy and wrong and R-rated, but like there's a heart to them.
Yeah. And they're
Um,
based in a reality where it's not so
yeah,
slapstick comedy. Like you look at, I'm going to go back
right.
to Tommy Boy because I actually saw it recently
Mhm.
where, they hit the deer's in the car and it comes to life and it like hours later it comes to life and
Right,
destroys the car. Like,
right.
that just doesn't happen in real life, but you laugh at it, you think
It's
it's funny, and
that was the 90s though. But you get to a movie like The Hangover where the tiger wakes up in the back seat. It feels like that could really happen.
yeah, right,
The way that
right,
that's shot, and like, oh,
right,
and they all get out of the car and they're like, what is going on?
and they're pushing it with they're pushing the car and he's got one
Right.
hand in there.
Right. So there was a progression, and I think American Pie was sort of that was like early 2000s, late 90s, where kind of you could see the progression there. It's a little bit more smartly written in the real world. It's over
Yeah,
the top and raunchy.
it's a
with the
coming
sex
of
and
age
everything.
for sure, right?
Coming of
But
age
for
kind of
me,
thing.
American Pie does one thing really well that I think all comedy, if they do it well, is I call it layering chaos, right? Whereas like one thing ends,
Yes.
the next thing immediately begins, and it's like, I think of it wasn't like the first one. I think it was like the third one where he shaves his gentleman parts, and then he gets caught, and then he throws it out the
Yeah.
window, and then it goes into the cake,
Mhm.
like, or there's the scene I think in the second one where he's watching a porn and he glues his hand to the porn, and then he's out on the
Oh,
roof.
I love
Like
that.
that's just like
Mhm.
chaos, like one right after the
How do
next,
you?
after the next, after the
And
next, and
it's
that's
funny.
missing in today's comedy, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's funny. The 80s, I think you could all go all the way back to the 70s, but the 80s for sure and the 90s were very big on the spoof
Mm-hmm.
comedy.
Yep.
And those were really big all through the 90s with Hot Shots. Mel Brooks even kind of got into it with like Robin Hood and Spaceballs and stuff like that. And then we saw the spoof comedy kind of die out in the 2000s.
Yeah.
I think that the last decent spoof movies were like the early Scary Movie one, the first couple.
The scary movie, like the
That the
first one,
Wayans
not the
brothers,
third one, but yeah,
yeah, the ones that the Wayans brothers did, and the Wayans brothers, very talented
yeah,
comedic actors and filmmakers. Those were okay, and then we saw it kind of go downhill with date movie and
yeah,
teen movie, and I feel that the reason is because comedies got a lot smarter,
yep,
and you look back to the 80s with movies like Airplane, which is a hilarious movie, was spoofing a movie called Airport, which was a 70s disaster movie that took itself very seriously.
mm-hmm.
And one that we probably are more familiar with in the 90s was Hot Shots,
Right,
which
yes,
is a funny movie that's spoofing primarily Top Gun, which
yeah.
is a very serious kind of dramatic kind of
And then
thing.
the second one was Rambo and Cliffhanger, and
Rambo,
right,
all these movies that were
yeah,
taking themselves very seriously, and Naked Gun,
yeah,
spoofing
yeah.
James Bond, which was a
33 and a
very serious.
third.
Then we get into Scary Movie, which is okay,
Uh-huh.
but it's primarily spoofing Scream. The
Yes.
problem with that is that Scream, while it's a great horror movie and a great slasher movie, is very tongue in cheek and
It
kind
is.
of in itself spoofs Halloween and Friday the 13th. There's a whole sequence in Scream where they're at the party watching movies and the guy pauses the movie and turns around. Here's how you survive a scary movie. Scream has a lot of comedy in it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
when we get to Scary Movie, we're now kind of spoofing tongue in cheek, and it doesn't quite work to spoof.
Exactly.
Then we get into Not Another Teen Movie, which was very dumb. And one of the primary films that movie spoofs is American Pie. Well, how do you
Right.
spoof
But American
American
Pie is a
Pie?
comedy in its own. Right.
It's American Pie is one of the greatest teen comedies ever. You're going
Yeah.
to spoof it? It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to do
You
that.
can't spoof American Pie. You can't spoof a comedy. Like it's already a
It,
comedy. It's already what it is.
it just kind of doesn't work.
And I think the grounding of real comedy is why comedies don't
Yeah.
like why they've changed. And I don't know. Is there a good? I mean, in the last 5 years, has there been a good comedy movie that has come out? Like a good one, like a
That
really
was-
good comedy movie.
That was going to be my question. In the last 5 years, or you could maybe even jump it back. Have we gotten anything?
Like something that's like legitimately laugh out
Like-
loud all the time, funny with
Right.
chaos, and
I don't know.
there's none that jump out to me
No.
in the last
No.
5 years. I mean, I think the last movie that I mean, so I think the last really good comedies were again, and it all comes kind of from the same couple of people, at least in my world, is going to be Anchorman, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights,
Oh yeah,
and those
you're
are, I
going
think,
back to
2015, 2020 maybe. Like I don't think those are that old, are they? Or
No,
they're
no,
not
no,
that.
no,
I think
no,
they're 2012, 2010.
I think Anchorman was like 2004.
Okay, well, it could be,
Yeah.
but those were like the last funny movies. I mean, you look at what Adam Sandler's doing now. I mean, Hubie Halloween, that wasn't funny at all. I mean, that was a terrible movie. He's done
just
the
kinda
two
not
murder things
there.
on Netflix. The
they're in
Wrong
there.
Missy on Netflix, that wasn't
Yeah.
that funny. Like,
I would actually, you mentioned Anchorman and Talladega Nights. I would say in the 90s, Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler. The 2000s, Will Ferrell was, I mean, he was doing consistently. Maybe they weren't the best thing, but they were funny. They
Yeah,
made
yeah.
money. You know.
I mean, and I think about because, and this is, I think, also goes to we don't have movies are a lot different today because they're not blockbusters anymore. They're not hitting the theaters the same way. I mean,
No.
they're hitting streaming services early. They're more accessible. So I'm just trying to think like the movies I tend to watch that are like, oh, that was a funny movie was something that was on Netflix that maybe was a Netflix movie, which, obviously are almost all Adam Sandler at this point, but just like, I mean, when was the last good Old School? Or, like
Old School. Oh, that's a funny movie.
right?
I mean,
But
that's
when was
just, it doesn't.
Going streaking.
Streaking Frank the Tank, man. Yeah.
When was the Neighbors? I'm trying. Okay, I'm gonna check this one. So when was
Neighbors?
the
Neighbors
Neighbors?
Was funny.
Yeah,
that's a funny movie.
But then you have Sausage Party. That's not funny. That's just a raunchy, terrible comedy. Like it's not funny. Like I thought that was terrible. But like I mean, they're out there, but they're not as common. I guess is what I would say. The Neighbors. I'm gonna look it up. Neighbors was 2014, so 11 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's still not in the last 5 years. Like,
well, I think what we got to talk about here, and this is maybe controversial, we talk about the culture.
Yep, I would agree. I know where you're going with this. You just can't be funny like you just can't do Blazing Saddles. Let's be honest. I mean,
you can't do it anymore.
That type of comedy is never going to happen again. There's just too many people who would be offended, or you'd be upsetting overturning the apple cart somewhere along the way where, quite frankly, you just can't get away with that kind of comedy anymore. I mean, when was Semi-Pro made? That was probably 2015 as well. Like that's been a while, and that's
I think it's
comedy.
Earlier. I'm pretty sure that was like 2008. Look it up.
I mean, that had a decent. Like, I'm just trying to think of like anything that was even somewhat controversial comedy wise recently. I think the most controversial has been Sausage Party, just because of the food.
I still think
GPN.
I think if you look at that, that's old too. I agree it was not the greatest movie, but I think it was also an older movie.
Let's look it up. I can
look it up.
2016. So yeah, you're still many years ago.
Yeah.
Where are the good Where are the good and again, you go back to spoofing. Where's the Austin Powers? Like, where is those films for 2020?
Mike Myers. Mike
I don't
Myers
think
is
anybody
someone
has
we
a
didn't
sense
talk
of humor
about
anymore.
Yeah, they're just not there.
Yeah, they just don't have. Nobody has a sense of humor anymore.
You don't even see a different type of comedy we can talk about. You don't even see the classic rom-coms anymore, which were a little bit more innocent and lovey-dovey. But like like the Julia Roberts. I'm talking like My Best Friend's Wedding or
The
Sandra
Proposal
Bullock.
was a decent one.
Proposal.
Yeah.
You don't even
One
see
of my
those anymore.
one of my
Hardly.
favorite rom-coms is Steve Carell and Gosling, and they have the crazy. It's
Oh,
not. It's Love Actually or Crazy Stupid Love. I always
no,
get them
Crazy
confused.
Stupid Love. Now
Crazy Stupid Love, the greatest scene of a
that's on another
comedy.
level. That's on
Yeah,
another level
chaos
because
on top of chaos on top of chaos.
I mean 2011 I think that
Yeah,
came out.
one of the best.
That another movie that should have gotten an Oscar nomination for its screenplay. I
Yeah.
think you don't see reveals like that in a rom com.
That was really well done. That's a very. If you've not seen that, that's 100% worth a watch.
That's oh my god, that's the backyard where
Kevin Bacon shows up, and it's
Kevin
just
Bacon
like...
shows. The girl's dad shows up. Everyone's tackling each other. And
Yeah.
the cops like we've all got our differences. We all got to work it out. And they're all just sitting there. They
inside. You got to work it out inside.
Work it out inside. Don't be yelling. You know.
Yeah.
So one dude's holding like the ice pack to his head.
When was the last good one of those? Like when was the last movie that you watched that you were like? Because and I think I'm you know what we watched the Superman trailer recently, so we're going to talk about this. I think it's the rise of the superhero movies and the action movies that they're trying to throw comedy into those. So we don't need comedy movies anymore because you just throw little bits of like, I mean, even like the old school action movies always had like, Axel Foley and Beverly Hills Cop. There was a lot of comedy in it and it was a decent action movie, but like, I think the rise of the superhero movies have just taken so much, or the animated films. I mean, that's really what we see. What is Hollywood doing right now? They are doing remakes, live actions. Mm-hmm. There's very few new things. And I mean, like, quite frankly, because movies don't make any money at the theater anymore, it's really hard to come up with a new, fun idea and then try to make it, produce it, get it put together, get it into theater and try to make your money back.
Yeah, it's a combination of all those things, I think, that we've talked about. Certainly, it's not there. You don't have any of those just funny, laugh out loud comedies. And I mean, we had them in the '90s, we had them in the 2000s. I mean, there was a progression, and you kind of saw the differences, but like funny either way, you know.
Yeah.
You just don't have that anymore.
Yeah, and honestly, at the end of the day, Happy Gilmore 2, I'm predicting it right now. It's gonna be a bust. It's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be anywhere near the level of Happy Gilmore War. It's gonna get everybody's gonna watch it because anybody that watched Happy Gilmore 1 is gonna want to watch Happy Gilmore 2.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong because I really love that story, but I don't think you're gonna have the funny scenes like you had in Happy Gilmore 1. You're not going to have him getting, in the batting cage taking balls. Oh, that hurts a little bit, or Chubbs losing his hand to the alligator and then falling out the window. And, the Bob Barker fight scene, he's dead. You can't have that. Who are they going to replace him with?
I was going to say that we could compare this, but I guess it's not an entirely fair comparison. When they made the sequel to Ghostbusters some years back, which Ghostbuster, I mean, it's kind of a sci-fi fantasy, but it's also a comedy.
Yeah.
I think that the difference there is that it looks like Adam Sandler is going to be headlining this. He's front and center.
Yeah.
Whereas the sequel to Ghostbusters, they were kind of the supporting, focused on the kids and everything, and they kind of played supporting parts.
I admittedly never watched any after the girls' version of it. I was like,
the girls' version
was terrible,
good.
By the way. And it wasn't and again, it's not because they were girls in it. It was because they just was a bad movie that just wasn't written well.
It just it wasn't very good. The Ghostbusters Afterlife, it was a good movie, but yeah, the original cast, Bill Murray and Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd, they kind of wait in the shadows and kind of appear in supporting parts, sort of like the Star Wars sequels. Whereas it looks like this Happy Gilmore is like, not a legacy sequel as they're calling them. Will be more in line with like Top Gun Maverick, which was a great film with Tom Cruise front and center. But that was a drama. And dramas are still going strong today. Whereas comedy, it's going to be tough. I'm curious to see what happens. don't want to agree with you, but I think you might be onto something. So
I was trying to look it up because there was a rom com I watched recently that I thought was decent, and it had and I'm trying to remember the dude's name. It had Adam Devine in it. It was like Photo Booth or something like that. But I mean, Pitch Perfect, that's a decent movie. That's not really a comedy or a rom com. I don't even know. That's just a singing movie. But there was a movie, it was like called Photo Booth or something Booth, and maybe it was made a long time ago, where he falls in love with this girl and he gets a chance to redo time because of the photo booth that they were in. Um, but yeah, I can't remember that one. The other good one that I saw recently, that I'm trying to think of ones I've seen recently that were good comedies or whatever, was One Night Stand. I thought that was good. Oh, Why Him? That's 2016. See, they keep going back to like 10 years ago. They just
Why
don't
him?
exist. They just don't exist.
Why him was not bad.
I
With
liked Why Him. I thought that
Bryan
was funny.
Cranston, James
Yeah.
Franco. That was all right. Yeah.
I mean, even End of the World 2012, that was, or was based on the idea the world was going to end in 2012. That was an okay, but like really, you just don't have those laugh out loud, really good comedies anymore. I hope this would us, guys. Tell us below in the comments, what are we missing? There's got to be a movie in the last 5 years that's a laugh out loud, hilarious comedy that you just, anytime it's on, you watch it on repeat because it's so funny. It's in that Step Brothers vein. Tell me what I'm missing, because I don't know. That, or just maybe now that we're old, dude, we just don't appreciate the young comedy. Like maybe we don't appreciate comedy, not comedies, but the new era of comedy like we should. You know, they're talking sus and riz and whatever other weird words these youngsters use today. Remember when our parents would be like, you guys use weird words, and now I'm like, God, our kids use some freaking weird words to mean weird things. I don't understand them. But
You know, it was a really good '90s comedy that was underrated and became a cult classic was Office Space. I love that movie.
Office Space is a cult class. It's a great movie. I
Love
thought you were
that
going to say,
movie.
yeah. I mean, and then you think John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Steve Martin. Who was the other character in Three Amigos? The short guy.
Martin Short.
Yeah, Martin Short. Right. I mean, those were like comedy geniuses, and then you go from that to Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler, Vince Vaughn, maybe Will Ferrell. You got the.
Well, those were more 2000s and 90s. Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey. I would say Mike Myers in the 90s.
Mike Myers,
was very big.
Eddie Murphy was probably that transition between maybe those.
Eddie Murphy kind of had an up and down. Nutty Professor was hysterical. I liked it.
It was the first one was decent. The first one was good.
Oh yeah, just the first one for sure.
And What About Dave? I think was a movie he did that I thought was underrated. But it was a decent movie where he's the alien or he's the robot. What About Dave? I think is what it was called. It had Eddie Murphy in it. Anyway, he wears a white suit in it most of the time. I'm pretty certain he's an alien or something. I can't remember, or shrunken down or something weird like that. But I don't know. If you're new here and you haven't done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Are we crazy? Has comedy died, or are we just not into do we not understand comedy like we used to? I don't know. I think it's dead, and I'm concerned for Happy Gilmore too. I really am. It's like you're gonna do Waterboy too. It's like Hollywood just can't come up with anything new at this point. But anyway, guys, with that, we appreciate you watching. Hit the subscribe button, throw up those thumbs, leave a comment below, tell us what we're crazy. And until next time, have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.